Hey, good day everyone. Here's another video about You Can Do It. So I am working on a 2010 Chrysler Sebring 2.4 liter limited, and I'm going to be swapping out the rotors and the brakes, both the front and the rear. So I already got the tire off, and we just want to show you how bad this rotor is. And it doesn't seem like we got a lot of brake left. So what's happening is, as I go on higher speeds, 40 and above, and I brake, there's significant vibration, and there's some squeaking, which tells me that there's a lot of wear on the brakes, and probably the rotors are warped and uneven, which they are. I can, say, even with my, mechanic glove on, I can still feel the grooves. It's pretty bad. So we're gonna swap these out and show you what the process is. All right, guys, first thing I did is I turned the steering wheel all the way to the left, and what that would allow me to do is open this bolt and this bolt, which will allow me to take out the caliper, and then I can get access to this bolt right here and one underneath it right there, to remove the entire bracket here, which holds the rotor. And there's no screws or bolts on these rotors, so pretty simple, hopefully, to swap these out. All right, guys, the first set of bolts, that's a 14. Took that out, and the ones in the back to remove the entire caliper housing is an 18 millimeter. So let me just loosen these bolts. All right, guys, I removed the two pins right here. They're gonna have to be cleaned up. I'm gonna put new grease on them. There they are. And then this caliper bracket just comes off. I'm just gonna hold it right there, and I'm gonna take a wire brush, clean out all the dust, take out the brakes. Brakes actually aren't bad. Still seems to be about over 50% left, but as you can see, the wear on them is uneven. Seems that this side has more wear, and it's hard to see. I'll try to show you. I don't know if you can see it in the camera. And then on the sides, there's some uneven wear and tear. And the brakes in the front, similar story. More wear on this side than that side. And again, trying to show you how bad that rotor is. And not sure if we can obviously try to get these scored or resurfaced, but it's just easier, and the rotors are so affordable, it's probably just easier to change it. All right, guys, I got the top 18 millimeter bolt out. Gonna take out the bottom one. There you go. We're gonna brush that off. We're gonna probably need these hardware clips and clean all this out. And as you can see, if you want, you can tie this with a zip tie or a bungee cord if you're uncomfortable, but I've done enough of these. I know that's probably not gonna fall. And there you go. The rotor is off. It's simple as that. And we're gonna take a wire brush, clean all this out first. All right, guys, I've taken my wire brush. You can see all the brake dust there. I went around and I try to get some of the rust off. And then I'm gonna also use a bunch of brake cleaner to get in there, but I cleaned the hardware off. And as much as the caliper as I could. Just be mindful that you got rubber here. But gotta make sure that doesn't rip or anything, otherwise you gotta buy new bushings here. What I'm gonna do is clean those with these push pins with a cloth and put new grease on them, and get a new rotor and put everything back. All right, guys, got my new rotors there. Got the brakes here. Here's the rear rotors. I'm just not sure if this is the front brakes, but we'll match them up. Here's the rotor. Obviously, this is the old one. I'm gonna remove this from the bag. And what I'm gonna do is gonna compare these side by side, make sure they're the same size. I don't have a measuring tool, but they appear to be the same size. And you always want to check that because sometimes they'll rub against that back plate. Right here, especially when you get stuff aftermarket. And also you want to be safe. You know, we got a jack stand, we got a jack. And I have safety glasses on because I'm working around a lot of brake dust. So, all right, so that rotor is good. Let me clean the push pins, the brake pins before I move. All right, guys, ready to put the rotor back in. A new one, I mean. And what I did is I put some anti-seize there. And let me just fit this rotor. You need 2 hands for this. All right, guys, got the rotor back on. This is the plate I was talking about. You may have to sometimes push this a little back. You know, I will, at the end, you know, put a lot of brake clean on this. But let me work on the caliper bracket. All right, guys, before putting the caliper back on, I got my pins. I mean, not my pins, my hardware. Cleaned it out, you know, stuck it back in there. It just clips back on, snaps in place. So I'm ready to basically put it on, but on the hardware, I'm gonna put some grease. And then just gonna, you know, obviously slide this, just turn this around the right way. It'll go like this in there. And I'm gonna put those 18mm bolts on to hold this back in place. All right, guys, here's the new brakes. It actually comes with a lot of new hardware. So we're actually gonna take this back off and use the new hardware and compare the brakes. Same size, so we're good to install these. All right, guys, easy peasy. Got the new hardware in there. Gonna dump the old one, and those are the other 2 for the other front side. And then these small clips are wear indicators, but we're not gonna use them. All right, guys, got the first brake pad in there, and all you gotta do is, let me take this out. So you got your brake pad. You wanna make sure the ceramic side hits the rotor. And sometimes, depending on the brakes that you're installing, they'll be going in on an angle, or this one just goes in straight. And again, on this side, you want to make sure, you know, the ceramic goes on the rotor. And again, you're just gonna try to fit it in there. And that's why you gotta put grease on top of these pins. And there you go, this is all set. And now we're gonna put the caliper back on. All right, guys, before we put the caliper on, we gotta put this piston back in. There's a few ways we can do it. You can just take a plier and push this back, or you can use one of these tools. What happens is, you know, you just put your brake pad in front of the caliper so it doesn't get damaged, and just push the clamp in or turn it, and it'll squeeze. All right, guys, so I got my clamp in there, and all I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna need 2 hands for this, but I'm gonna turn this once it's tight, once the clamp is tight, and it's gonna push that piston back in. There you go. You see that piston going in. Gotta be careful that caliper doesn't fall. You're gonna need 2 hands. I'm just trying to do it as best as possible and very slowly with 1 hand. So I think you guys get the picture. It's almost in there. Let me just get it all the way in there. All right, guys, that's how the caliper looks with the piston pushed all the way in. And now you see how it slides in there, and these bushings, we're ready to, I'm gonna put some grease in these push pins. The ones that we took out, they're over here somewhere. There they are. I'm gonna put some new grease and tighten those 14mm. All right, guys, I put some grease a little on that pin. And as you can see, it's moving a little freely. Looks like it could use a little more grease, and we'll put a little more. There you go, put some more grease. There you go. I'll do the same to the bottom one. All right, guys. Got it in there. I'm gonna tighten the bolts, brake clean the rotor, make sure it's all tight, and put some more grease around the pins in the front, and start on the other side. All right, guys, we got everything tight. I put more grease just around the edges and in the middle right there, and gonna take a boatload of brake, spray a lot of brake cleaner all around. Probably should have done this before. Just wipe it off because the rotors come from the factory and they have a oil coating on it. So obviously you want to make sure it doesn't interfere with the brake. The ceramic gets a good connection. All right, guys, I'm gonna put the wheel back on and go to the next tire. All right, guys, before I put the wheel on, I'm gonna put some anti-seize on, and then I'm gonna put the wheel back on. All right, guys, got the wheel back on. As you can see, new rotor looks all great, shiny. Guys, again, here is the old rotor, front driver's side, and just see how bad it is. No wonder the tire was vibrating and the brakes were vibrating when, you know, we were pressing the brakes. All right, guys, now I'm on the passenger side. Took out the wheel. This rotor is bad, but not as bad as the driver's side, but obviously we got to do this in pairs, so we're gonna do the same process. Remove the calipers, 14mm bolt, 18mm bolt. Calipers come off, brakes come off, rotors come off. All right, guys, got the top one loose. Couldn't get the bottom one loose, so I had to pull out the breaker bar. And there you go. Okay. So you may need a breaker bar as well. Got both 14mm bolts off. And this is gonna slide right out. I'm gonna sit this right up there. You know, remove these 18mm bolts and take out the brake. You can see there's still, I don't know, like 75–80% of the brake left, but obviously rotors are messed up, so we're gonna change everything. All right, guys, needed a breaker bar for those 18mm bolts. And I'm just gonna put the socket on my cordless ratchet. If you guys don't have one of these, I would strongly recommend it. I mean, it's sort of been a lifesaver. As you can see, makes your job a lot easier. All right, guys, got the rotor off. As you can see, very bad. Again, I'm gonna do the same thing. Sand it off with a wire brush. You know, I know we got new hardware, so we don't have to worry about the hardware. We can dump those and just sand off the caliper. I'm gonna push the piston back in, and I'm gonna take the new brake rotor. This time I'm gonna put brake clean on it and then put it back on. All right, guys, I came outside because of all the brake dust that comes out of the caliper. So I'm just gonna scrub these off. All right, guys, got the new rotor in. Got the new brakes in. Gonna put the caliper on with the 18mm bolts and hopefully put the tire back on. And I think we're all done. So hopefully this video helped you understand how to service your brakes, changing the brakes, the rotors, and also the calipers and the push pins, the glide pins on a 2010 Chrysler Sebring. I believe it's the same process on a Jeep and the Chrysler models 2006 to 2010. And I'm also going to work on the rear brakes as well, and I'll make a separate video on that or combine it with this video. All right, guys, another video by You Can Do It.